Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, there's an old Waylon Jennings song with lyrics by my favorite poet Shel Silverstein about whistlers and jugglers and singers of songs. Well, the Dodgers finished a dominant sweep over the Reds with contributions from whiffers and strugglers who became bringers of dongs. I barely got that out, but a big game for Justin Turner, Cody Bellinger, and Max Muncy, not to mention the usual suspects, Trea Turner, Freddie Freeman, and Will Smith. We're going to talk all about that. We're going to talk about Trayce Thompson's future with the Dodgers, and we're going to jump into a little bit of the upcoming series with the Braves. So let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Dodger fans. This is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Or even better, go ahead and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now, and that way you'll never miss a day because you know we're not going to. If this is your first time watching or listening, my name is Jeff Snyder. My co-host is Vince Samperio, although it's just me today. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans just like you are. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we're not quite insiders, but we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. So again, please subscribe and let's talk about the Dodgers. The Dodgers finished off their sweep of the Reds, beat them 10-5, scored a total of 26 runs in this three-game series. It's hard to lose a series scoring 26 runs, and the Dodgers did not lose the series. I think they allowed, a total of 11 runs, outscoring teams 26-11. That's a good recipe for success, and it wasn't even that close. This 10-5 game wasn't that close. Tommy Pham hit a not meaningless, but relatively meaningless 3-run home run late in the game off of Phil Bickford. That was really the only thing that kept this from being a perfect baseball game. Well, a little bit of base running. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about the base running. But the big story of this game, I think, was the contributions from some guys who have not been contributing, as we say in America, very much. Justin Turner, Max Muncy, and Cody Bellinger. Each of those three guys had 3 hits. Bellinger and Muncy each had a home run. JT had 2 doubles. And all in all, it was great to see. You know, Belli turned on a 3-0 pitch, and we've seen Belli swing at some 3-0 pitches this year, but this one, he knew what to do with it, and he did it, and he hit it over the wall. Muncy's home run was vintage Max Muncy. You watch that swing, you would never know that there's anything wrong with Max Muncy. And we're going to talk a little bit about Max Muncy in a little bit. Justin Turner, he started off really, really bad, and then he had a good couple weeks, and then this month he's been struggling again. But his last few games, he's starting to pick it up a little bit. It's so hard with a guy like Justin Turner, who is getting older. When he hits a slump, you have no idea if he's slumping or if he's just bad now. And he's never, people say, well, he's always started slow. He's never started slow like this. He's always started slow power-wise, but overall he was still good. And this year he's, for the most part, just been really bad. After those 3 hits on whatever day, Thursday, that brought his OPS up to 649, his batting average up to 220. So that kind of tells you everything you need to know. Muncy's 3 for 4 day brought his OPS up to 628 and his batting average up to 170. Bellinger's OPS on his 3 for 4 came up to 676, batting average up to 213. So those guys still a long way to go. But one thing to hopefully for them to keep in mind, once you get this far in a season struggling that bad, the back of their baseball card, no matter what they do the rest of the season, you're going to look and say, oh, he had a down year in 2022. Oh, Muncy, Max Muncy's not going to hit 35 home runs this year, like we've come to expect from him, like he's done in every full season as a Dodger. He's hit at least 35 home runs. Well, this was his 5th. So even if he goes on a tear and becomes classic Max Muncy the rest of the season, we're looking at maybe 25 homers. And so you're going to look at his overall stat and say, oh, he had a down year. But Max Muncy hitting 20 home runs between now and the end of the season, we would all take that. And that would be a huge contribution to the Dodgers. Same with Justin Turner and Cody Bellinger. Their overall numbers for the season, it's been long enough that they've been struggling that the numbers are going to be down, but there's still a lot they can do between now and the end of the season and in October. And honestly, that's all that really matters. And that's part of the reason you put together a team like the Dodgers have put together, where you don't need everybody to have a career year. All you need is most of your guys to have kind of an average for them year, and a couple guys to be better than average, and to make it for the couple guys who are going to be below average. But in the end, when you've got a lineup of 9 all-stars, you don't need them all to be great. And what we're seeing here is it's different guys each day. And in this series, it was Freddie Freeman every day. Like Trea Turner had a 4-hit day, then a no-hit day to break up a hitting streak, and then followed it up with a 3-hit day. Freeman, 10 or 11 RBIs in this series, hit a couple home runs, a ton of hits. I mean, Freddie Freeman is hitting the ball with authority. We've heard a lot of questions over the last couple of months. Where's Freeman's power? I thought he was a power hitter. Well, we're starting to see that. He's up to how many home runs does he have now? 8. And so, still not where you'd expect Freddie to be, but Freddie's another guy. You could easily picture him hitting 15 or 20 more home runs between now and the end of the season. That's pretty solid. We'll take those numbers, especially along with what you get from Freddie. His OPS now stands at 880. His batting average is back over 300. He's at 303. And, when he was hitting 290, he was talking about how he's been struggling. Well, now he's over 300 where he belongs. And this is kind of the hot streak you expect from Freeman. One thing I want to talk about with Max Muncy is everything that he's been, if you think back to Cody Bellinger's spring training, you thought, how is this guy ever going to make contact with the ball ever again? That's how lost Bellinger looked. Muncy hasn't looked like that. Yeah, he hasn't looked good, but he hasn't been striking out. His strikeout rate is lower. Basically, it's lower than his career strikeout rate, and lower than every year of his Dodgers career, except for last year. It's a little higher than last year. His walk rate is the highest of his career. And some people think that's part of the issue, that he's up there hunting the walk because he's not comfortable. But like I said, when you watch this home run that he hit on Thursday, that was vintage Max Muncy, so we know the power is still there. And I've felt for the last few weeks like Muncy's almost there. Like there's been a lot of flyouts that you're like, oh, he just barely missed that. Some hard ground balls. Oh, if he can just turn that into a line drive, that's going to be a double. And I think that's usually part of the progression. And so that's why I've remained optimistic about Muncy. Not the overall numbers. Like I said, his overall numbers for 2022 are probably going to look bad. But I think he's close to being where he will be a contributor. And he's not a guy who, he comes out the bat, like, oh, I hope he can walk, because he's not going to do anything else. The 3 hits he got, there was a ground ball in the infield that it was hit hard and the infielder couldn't make a play. It would have been an outstanding play, easy, obvious hit, and then like a bloop single and a home run. We'll take that. You don't have to hit every ball 1,000 miles an hour, but Muncy did hit one 1,000 miles an hour, and it looked really good. And so, of all the guys on the team who've been struggling, I think Muncy is the one I'm most optimistic about. Justin Turner, I don't know what's going. I don't know if he just got old and bad. I don't know. I hope not. I hope Turner can contribute. Bellinger, he's throughout his career so many times he's had these mechanical tweaks, and I remember Game 4 of the 2018 NLCS. I was sitting in the dugout club at Dodger Stadium for that game. I ended up standing next to Clay Bellinger. That's the game that went to extra innings, and it ended on Cody Bellinger having a walk-off single that scored Manny Machado from second. I was talking to Clay Bellinger during the game, and he said, yeah, Cody's mechanics are all effed up right now. And, that was, Cody won the MVP of that series. So, and it wasn't a good series, but he had a couple big hits. And, that's kind of who Cody Bellinger is. But we know he can make contributions. But Max Muncy is the one I have the most confidence in to turn into what we expect him to be. And I hope that what we saw on Thursday was the start of that. Of course, I hope that a week and a half ago or whatever, 2 weeks ago, when he did that against the White Sox and then he struggled, but hopefully this time it's real and he really steps it up. So I'm going to come back in a minute. I'm going to talk a little bit about Clayton Kershaw's season. We'll eventually get to talking about the upcoming Braves series. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. Hey, our partner today is a product that I recently started using every day once again, Almost a decade ago, I lost over 100 pounds and I was in literally the best shape of my life. And part of my regimen then was athletic greens, suggested to me by Tim Ferriss. It was a vital and super helpful part of my healthy lifestyle. As you know, I've let myself go since then, but I am working on getting healthy again, and I am counting on athletic greens to be a very important element of that. So, what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of athletic greens, you're absorbing 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all the things. As you know, it can get expensive to buy all the supplements and vitamins your body needs. Athletic Greens cost you less than $3 a day, and it's full of high quality ingredients that your body will actually absorb. It's a ton cheaper than buying all the supplements separately. And to top it off, for every purchase, Athletic Greens donates to organizations helping to get nutritious food to kids in need, including No Kid Hungry here in the US. They donated over 1.2 million meals last year. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/MLB network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/MLB network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Hey, we have an important favor to ask you. We've put together a survey so we can learn more about listeners like you and make your favorite Locked On podcast even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and don't like about Locked On podcasts. Go to lockedonpodcasts.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take very long, and everyone that completes a survey can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. To take our audience survey, go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. Thank you for your help. All right, I am back. Going to talk some more about the Dodgers because that's what we do here at Locked On Dodgers. I want to thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. It means the world to us. I noticed just today that in about a week and a half, Vince and I are going to hit 1,000 episodes that we've done between our two podcasts combined. If you don't know the history, Vince and I started about 6 years ago a podcast. We called it the Scully Avenue Podcast, and we did 138 episodes of that podcast. We were weekly, like a normal podcast back then. And over the course of almost 3 years, we did 138 episodes of that show, which means when we hit 962 of this one, that would put us at, or 862, that'll put us at 1,000 total. And we are currently, I think this is episode 854 of this since we switched to going daily and calling ourselves Locked On Dodgers as part of the Locked On Podcast Network. So it's exciting. I love talking about the Dodgers. That's the only reason I do this. And I'm glad that you guys are along for the ride. One of my favorite Dodgers to talk about is Clayton Edward Kershaw. He is my favorite player of all time. That some people give me a hard time about that. How can you have such a recent player, a current player, be your favorite of all time? Don't you know anything about baseball history? Yeah, I know a thing or two about baseball history. I've named my children after Cal Ripken Jr. and Sandy Koufax and Nolan Ryan. I know baseball history. I had favorite baseball players. Cal Ripken Jr. was my favorite player of all time. That's why my first son's middle name is Ripken. But Clayton Edward Kershaw has surpassed Cal Ripken Jr. Clayton Kershaw is he's the greatest. He is my favorite. Everything about him I like. And this year, yeah, he spent some time on the injured list. But when he's been pitching, his 6 innings, 1 run allowed on Thursday, dropped his ERA to 2.00. This is the guy who is quote unquote old and doesn't have the good stuff anymore and, isn't what he used to be. And yeah, all that stuff's technically true, I guess, but only because nobody's what Clayton Kershaw used to be. In 2013, 2014, Clayton Kershaw was, one of the best pitchers in baseball history, what he was doing. He doesn't have that stuff anymore, but he still sure does know how to pitch. And to see him transition from being, he threw 97 when he came up. And even when he was winning his Cy Young Awards, he was throwing 94, 95 all the time, sometimes 96. And now he's like, every once in a while hit 93, but really he's more of a 90, 91 mile an hour fastball kind of guy. But he's still got the great curveball, still got the great slider. Like He came up. He called up to the major leagues at age 20. Just had a fastball and a curveball, and he was a very good pitcher for a couple years with just a fastball and a curveball. In his first 3 seasons, before he had the slider, he had a 3.17 ERA, went 26 and 23. He compiled, what is that, like 14 WAR? 11.8 WAR in those first 3 seasons. And then he added the slider, and not just a slider, the best slider in baseball. And he said, okay, now guys, you had your chance to get your hits off me. Now nobody's ever getting a hit off me ever again. And then he won the Cy Young Award. And then he got second place in Cy Young Award because the voters were idiots and voted for R.A. Dickey instead. He got robbed of a Cy Young Award. Then he won 2 more Cy Young Awards and an MVP. He had 5 straight top 3 Cy Young finishes, 7 straight top 5 Cy Young finishes. Just dominant. Well, guess what? It's 2022 now. Clayton Kershaw is 34 years old, and he has a 2 ERA, and it's June. It's late June, and his ERA is 2.00. This isn't a fluke. This is not Clayton Kershaw having a couple good starts. Yeah, I mean, he's only thrown, let's see, with the 6 today, 45 innings this year. Guess what? 45 innings is more than guys pitch in a postseason when you decide, oh, he's the best pitcher ever. I'm not going to say Madison Bumgarner's name here, but there's people who think Madison Bumgarner is the best pitcher. I guess I said his name, the best pitcher in the world, in the history of the world, because he had a good 40 innings in the 2014 postseason. Guess what? Kershaw, even if you don't want to go with the whole body of work for a career, that's about what Kershaw's thrown this year. And he is awesome. And one of the things I noticed is his home run rate is the lowest it's been in a long time. One of the things that I mentioned that, Kershaw had those 7 straight top 5 Cy Young finishes. And one of the reasons he stopped finishing in the top 5 is because his home run rate started going up. Actually, the year it went up was 2017. That's when it started to go up, and he still finished second in the Cy Young voting. But his home run rate for his first several seasons was, always about 0.4 to 0.6 home runs per 9 innings. And then suddenly it was up to 1.2, 0.9, 1.4, 1.2, last year 1.1. Well, this year it's back down to 0.7. Some of that is for sure the ball. But some of that is also, it's not like he's even giving up deep fly balls. It's not like there's been a ton of hits that you think, oh, that would have been a home run if it wasn't for Rob Manfred and his weird balls. It's that's how you get around the YouTube censors. You say things that sound like one thing, but maybe sound like something else too. But Kershaw's home run rate is down. His walk rate is down. It's 1.4 walks per 9, which is right in line with, it's lower than when he was the best pitcher in baseball. It's right in line with, his MVP season. It's the same number as the year he won the MVP award. And his strikeouts per 9, it's not as high as, it was as high as 11.6 in 2015, still 9.2. And for a guy who throws 90 miles an hour to strike out more than a batter an inning, that's impressive. And so I just wanted to take a minute to talk about Clayton Kershaw and make sure that we appreciate what we're seeing here. He's got 47 strikeouts in 45 innings this year, which is very impressive for a guy who doesn't throw hard anymore. His command is still ridiculous, and his desire to be great is still there. On Thursday, Joe Davis joked that it was his season high in loud yells from the mound. Kershaw expects the best for himself, and he threw a couple sliders that he knew right out of his hand they weren't good, and he let the world know how he felt about that. And one of the things that Joe and Karos pointed out was every single one of those yells was followed by a perfectly executed pitch. That's who Clayton Kershaw is. I don't want to contribute to myth building, but Clayton Kershaw is a legend. We are watching a legend in our time. I was messaging with my aunt today. She is, older. She's in her 60s, and she grew up in LA, and she was a huge Sandy Koufax fan. And so we were talking about the Sandy Koufax statue, and she asked me to please, next time I go to Dodger Stadium, get a picture of me in front of that statue and send it to her, because that's how much it means to her. That's what Sandy Koufax means to her. I hope that we all recognize that we are watching our own modern day version of Sandy Koufax pitch. All of us who've been Dodger fans the last decade and a half, we get to tell our grandkids, I watched Clayton Kershaw pitch. I was there live when I went to the game on Friday. Yeah, the Dodgers lost. Guess what? I got to watch Clayton Kershaw pitch again. I've seen him pitch in person so many times. It never gets old for me. I had my boys pose. I should have uploaded it while I was before I thought about it. I had my boys pose down with Clayton Kershaw stretching before the game, just right behind them. So it's like, hey, here's a picture of you guys with Clayton Kershaw. It's as close as we're going to get to a real picture of them with Clayton Kershaw. But like, he's a legend. And I, for one, am thankful that I get to watch him pitch and that I've been able to enjoy these memories and have so many wonderful Clayton Kershaw memories. And hopefully the Dodgers will get him his second World Series ring this October. I'm going to come back in a minute. I'm going to talk a little bit about this upcoming Braves series, kind of in the context of Trayce Thompson, what to do there, and maybe a little bit about Hanser Alberto and his future with the Dodgers, because I have some thoughts on other people who might fill that role. So thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's NHL playoffs and Major League Baseball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. Bet Online, where the game starts. All right, we are back, and I've just got a few thoughts, kind of stuff I've been thinking about. Trayce Thompson had a huge 2-run double in Wednesday's game to add some very valuable insurance runs. I think it was 5-4, and then he had a 2-run double to make it 7-4. Huge hit. And then in the 9th inning on Thursday, he had a solo home run, less huge. They were already up 9-5. It wasn't that big a deal. If anything, it ruined a bunch of Dolly Parton puns for Eric Steven. So I guess that's one reason to appreciate it. But it was a blast. And in limited time, Trayce, his first 2 at bats as a Dodger, or this time as a Dodger, he struck out, saw a total of 6 pitches and struck out twice. That's not great. But then he bounced back. His last 2 at bats, he has the home run or the double and then the home run. And so he's batting 500 with the Dodgers now. He's got 3 RBIs in 4 at bats. And I'm interested to see what they do in today's game. I didn't see anything. I know after Wednesday's game, Dave Roberts laid out exactly what his lineup or his defensive positioning was going to be for Thursday's game. I didn't see anything like that after Thursday's game about what they're going to do in game 1 against the Braves. But Ian Anderson is pitching, and Ian Anderson has reverse splits in his career, and even more so this season. In his career, he's tougher on righties or on lefties than on righties. This year, lefties have a 643 OPS, righties have a 798 OPS against Ian Anderson in not quite the same number of plate appearances, but pretty close. 128 plate appearances for lefties, 172 for righties. And I mean, he is a reverse splits guy. And, Trayce Thompson, he's been with the team for 3 games now, hasn't gotten a start yet. He's gotten 4 plate appearances. It's counterintuitive to start him against a righty, but Anderson, he relies so much on that changeup, and changeup pitchers often are reverse splits guys. That's why I even thought to look, because, he's got that changeup, and changeups are usually more effective against opposite-handed hitters. Opposite-handed hitters. And so they often have reverse splits, and Ian Anderson does. So I'd love to see Trayce Thompson get that start in right field, get a start, and then Max Fried is pitching the second game of the series, so that gets Trayce Thompson 2 starts. Spencer Strider on Sunday, unlikely that would be Trayce Thompson, and so you probably go with either McKinstry or Alvarez at that point. But defensively, I like Trayce Thompson in right field, and with the splits the way they are for Ian Anderson, I'd love to see that. I am very interested to see what happens there. One guy who will probably be back soon is Hanser Alberto. He is on the paternity list, but that is limited to 3 days, which means his time coming back is very soon, which probably means Stefan Romero's time in the big leagues is coming to an end too. They haven't gotten him in a game yet, and I don't know if they will. And his time on the 40-man roster is probably coming to an end too. They had to make a 40-man roster move for him, and they did. They transferred. I forget who they transferred to the 60-day injured list. It was somebody, but they don't need that 40-man spot quite yet, but they're going to. And so Stefan Romero is probably the first man cut from the 40-man roster. He has a decent chance of clearing waivers and heading back to AAA, but we'll have to see what happens there. It's kind of been, I mentioned this on Twitter. I saw people kind of upset that Romero and bringing in Trayce Thompson and other guys, Eddie Alvarez, getting these shots over guys like Jake Lamb or Miguel Vargas. And what you have to do in these situations, you got to remember the 40-man roster situation, because they're calling up guys. I mean, Trayce Thompson, unless he really goes lights out, there's a decent chance when Mookie comes back, Trayce gets DFA'd. Because I assume he doesn't have options left because he's a veteran, which means he probably, and he can play his way into a role, but go with a guy who they don't want to have to DFA to get him off the major league roster. So, that's where they're at. But I've been thinking specifically about Hanser Alberto as he's coming back. Alberto has not done much this year for the Dodgers. He has a 587 OPS, which is a 62 OPS plus, which is the worst of his career. Defensively, he hasn't been great. Hasn't been terrible, but hasn't been great. And overall, I mean, he's been a great presence on the bench. People like him. He's fun, but he's not the answer. I just don't think he is the answer. And part of the reason, if there's nobody better, I get it. But I did a crossover episode on Thursday afternoon with the guys from Locked On Reds, kind of talking about this series. I might upload that as a bonus episode to our channel, or you might just need to go check it out if you want to see it. We talked a lot about this series, the Dodgers pounding the Reds. We also talked about some trade possibilities, because the Dodgers might be in the starting pitcher market, and the Reds have a couple starting pitchers who are good and are likely to be on the market. So we did some mock trade ideas for Luis Castillo and or Tyler Mahle. And one that I had during that time was, what about Donovan Solano or Brandon Drury? Either one of those guys. But like Donovan Solano, something happened in 2019, I think. He suddenly learned how to play baseball. He learned how to hit. And I don't know, is when he went to the Giants, and the Giants are right up there with the Dodgers as these kind of success stories. But Solano hadn't been in the big leagues in 3 years at that point. He had been in the minors with the Dodgers at one point, with a few other teams. And then 2019, he gets 228 plate appearances, has a 116 OPS plus. 2020 gets 203 plate appearances, basically is a starter for them, 127 OPS plus. Last year, 344 plate appearances, 102 OPS plus. And, this year he has only these 7 plate appearances, whatever he got this series, that's all he's played this year. He was hurt. He got hurt in spring training. That's all he's played so far this year. But Donovan Solano, and for his career, he's a pretty even split guy. But since he got good, he's definitely much better against lefties than against righties since he became a good hitter. Well, that's the role that Hanser Alberto is filling. I think Donovan Solano is a better hitter than Hanser Alberto, and a better defender, probably more versatile defender. And he can play everywhere in the infield. I would love to see Donovan Solano come over in one of those trades. If the Dodgers did pull a trade for Luis Castillo, Tyler Mahle, include Donovan Solano in that to play that role that Hanser Alberto is playing. And like I said, Brandon Drury is another option if they are getting somebody from the Reds. Drury is having a good season this year. But it's, something about Donovan Solano. Maybe it's because I watched him do it for the Giants against the Dodgers, but I feel like in my heart, I feel like Donovan Solano is the best hitter in baseball. You know what? That I said it. Okay. So I want him on the Dodgers. There it is. Um, yeah, so we got a big series with the Braves coming up. Hopefully, this momentum, Dodgers scoring 26 runs in 3 games, Freddie Freeman on a tear. Everybody is contributing. Hopefully, that can carry over into Atlanta. The Dodgers starting pitching has been great this year, and I expect them to continue to be great. And it's all going to come down to how much can the offense score for us. Hopefully, Craig Kimbrell gets a couple save opportunities, but ideally of the 3-run variety, and shuts them down, gets his season back on track. It's going to be fun to see Freddie Freeman back in Atlanta, see how they receive him. Hopefully Atlanta fans will give him the adoring reception that he deserves. He is a legend in Atlanta, should be a legend in Atlanta, and hopefully they will treat him as such. And yeah, Vince and I are going to have everything you need to know on Monday about this series. Hopefully we'll be talking about a series win, maybe even a series sweep, but we'll take 2 out of 3. Beggars can't be choosers. And we will be with you on Monday, like we always are, to talk all about the Dodgers dominating this series against the Braves. So that's going to do it for me for today. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day. Now, for your second listen, the first picks of the Ultimate NBA Mock Draft have been made. Search now for Ultimate NBA Mock Draft and get over 50 insiders, the Odyssey sports experts, and draft experts of Locked On NBA Big Board. The 5-episode Ultimate NBA Mock Draft is underway. Make Ultimate NBA Mock Draft your second listen today. And now that the actual draft has started, you can see how well our experts did in their mock draft. So if you're not watching or listening to Locked On Dodgers every day, we would love if you would add 1 or 2 days a month to your rotation. If you have friends and family who love the Dodgers as much as you do, please tell them about the show. Maybe they'll like it too. You can follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at Vince Samperio. I'm on Twitter at Snydog, and the DMs are open in all of those places. Our email address is lockedondodgers@gmail.com, and our phone number for voicemails or text is 323-863-LOCK, 5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree, you just have to listen. We'll talk to you on Monday.